Hello everyone. So today I'm going to be answering the questions that appeared under the video on the US cruiser strategy. And while I'm discussing US cruiser strategy, I'm going to be giving you a bit of a fight to look at on UAD. And the fight, well, that's going to be a bit of a special one. The fight is going to be between the Belfast class, or at least a modified UAD version of it based on the superstructure they provide, which is kind of interesting. And also, well, the Gisianos, or at least again, a version of the Gisianos, slightly modified. I have to might have probably more torpedoes on them and more armor, but you know, I've slightly modified it to fit the UAD game because I didn't think it was fair or right to do it. The thing is, you can keep it as close to the design as possible, and then the UAD game metrics are going to muck it up because it's there's the way the metrics are designed, or you can design it appropriately within the metrics of the game. And I've gone within the metrics of the game, and that equals both actually are a little heavier than they are in real life. But mea culpa, and I hope you enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the answers to questions. Take care. So, just to give you a bit of background on this one, to try and make it fair and to set it up properly, because let's be honest, the Gisianos were not designed to fight other cruisers, I have made it so that it is not one-on-one. In fact, technically, because you can't build a light cruiser as heavy as a town class was, they are limited to 9,000 tons. In the glorious thing that is UAD, they're heavy cruisers, which is why they look like a shrunken, I'm not sure what, shrunken King George V. And, well, the Gisianos, to build them properly and actually get something which looks like their hull, I've gone for the Austro-Hungarians. Well, let's go do it. So I've gone for a Gisiano-inspired class versus a town class inspired class. Right. AI is on, avoiding torpedoes, and avoiding crushing the ships. That's good. I will now let you go. And I will turn to the questions. The questions interested me this week because they're from a video which I wasn't expecting to get as many questions as it did, honestly. And again, I'm reading them off my phone so I don't upset it. But, you know, one has to do these things occasionally. And it was a good video. It came out not long after, well, actually, did it come out while I was away? I think it... Did it come out while I was in Canada, or did it come out after I got back? I think it came out after I got back, honestly. And now, helpfully, the app has decided to close down and has lost it for me, what I had open. Always lovely when it does this. Introduction to US Cruiser Strategy. Yay, found it. View the comments. Published. I haven't responded to. No, sort them into published. And yeah, right. So starting from the ones which were the earliest comments. Again, what is this is from Vision. What is strange is the 1890s USS Rochester, former Saratoga, former New York, the first armored cruiser, being the last one in USN service, floating around on the China station into the 1930s. Also, all US cruisers received city names except for Alaska-class Super Duper cruisers. Yes, even Honolulu is a city on the island of named Ohio. Yeah, and let's be honest, Honolulu is a pretty good ship. So there's a lot of torpedoes in the water. None of these ships are exactly the most heavily armed. And the Austro-Hungarians / Gisiano class Italians are capable of 37 knots. These vessels are capable of 32.5 knots. Let's see how it works out. I haven't quite got the guns right, I think, because I could either go for something more powerful than it was supposed to be, or something less powerful. So I went for the less powerful one to try and be fair to the Gisianos, because they have, like, paper-thin armor. Knight 6831. It's really unfortunate the documents, the IJN documents didn't survive, as it would have been interesting to know what the IJN was looking at post Yamamoto. My view is what they were looking at post Yamamoto was probably something even bigger. And there's various discussions as to what the British would have produced and what everyone would have produced to counter them. But basically, it starts a building race. That's the thing. And this is the thing with the Japanese. If they had actually released the image of what they were building, they would have started a construction race, which would have probably caused the Americans to have a panic attack with their construction. They might have even paused construction on the ships they were building to see if they could scale them up and make them bigger, all of which would have actually bought the Japanese time. These ships could have bought them time. That would have been the important thing. And instead, they weren't used to do that. Instead, they were allowed to be, well, as you've seen them, completely and utterly budgeted, basically. There are so many better ways to have done it, and they didn't do them. Sage, I've been pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed what I had thought would be a very dry series of academic videos. How wrong I was. Must find reasons to send you off on your travels more often. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Jack Ray, I think the Yamaha class are frustrating to look at due to their anachronistic design of casemates and turrets. As for interwar USN cruiser doctrine, it's like the Yamaha class, was mostly there as placeholders for actually good cruisers. Reminds me of putting plywood structures with turrets on top of cars and practicing for tank warfare. At least it's better than the current USN shenanigans with literal combat ships. Yamaha cruisers actually worked as designed. They worked quite well, actually. The thing is, they looked like an absolute mess of ideas, and would probably have been even better if they hadn't been such a mess of ideas, but they did work quite well. As Turning 3434 put, still a cruiser class that got weird because of its need for a technological challenging speed. Yeah, the US Navy and its obsession with speed, it happens. It really does happen. What's going on? Let's see. Chester and Sutlej. That's a nice town. The joy about Ultimate Animal Drones, it never gets what naming naming practice you're going with. I'm trying to make these town classes and you're just going weird. Peach, but this is a very interesting lecture, even to my American ears. Thanks. It's sad that people cannot distinguish between honest critique and bashing. I was going to answer this, but actually, Phil Vandeline has done it better for me. Well, some of us have our admiration, apathy, disdain selector broken and stuck on sarcasm. But like I said, I like all this series so far. Thank you. I'm hoping you're going to like the Cruiser series as it continues. Northampton ones are being recorded next week because I didn't record them before I went away to Canada. And I've been looking at it for a while. I really do like the idea of getting into the Northampton class because they have so many good ideas and then they produce the Northamptons as they were. And it's a case of what happened. Calm Gasman, they do not have super firing. No, they must have super firing. Casemate super firing over turrets, and LSD was not even invented yet. Please don't suggest that there is some seriously things weird with these ships. John Harris, may I suggest the following comparison? The Royal Navy in 1700-1750 had a crisis of disorganization and efficiency. They learned and created after this through existential threat to enable a trust with Parliament which gave each a confidence in the other to ask for and do the right thing by the nation. US Navy never was able to create that trust with their politicians and the confidence until late into war period, the Second World War. The existential threat did not really appear until the rise in Japan and Germany, I think that the majority of naval thinking overall, not individuals as the US institutions, were in effect behind the learning curve in the Royal Navy had started to achieve 150 years before. This shows in the confusion doctrine during the interwar period. Kind regards. I'd say there's more issues on the sort of the things with the doctrine. The fact is, rather like here, you've got ships which are able to keep each other at bay. These have speed and technically more firepower in terms of them having 4 ships, each with 8 guns. Those ships over there have armor and are designed to fight other light cruisers, and they have 12 guns each. So there is 36-inch guns over there versus 32 over here. 36? Hang on, no. 24 versus 32 over here. So, sorry about the bad maths there. And sorry, I'm watching the screen jumping about. It's quite smooth on my screen, but the actual recording, despite me having it on 60 frames a second and the maximum and everything done to the top end I can produce, it doesn't come through the same way it shows in the screen, which is rather, well, depressing in a way for me. This is why I need to get a tower working so it can do this smoothly. I should really stop doing these till I've got a working tower, but I like doing them and I like answering questions, and I think you just staring at me while I read off a screen would not be fun. So that's why I do it this way, but I wish it would come through better. Paul from Chicago. I'm doing about 70 miles an hour in rural Minnesota at the moment, and so I don't really can't really respond except to say the Hawkins, D's, and the Emeralds both have significant flaws that get corrected in the X and Candies. I would argue this is more of an issue for the British. The Americans were only watching, but the British really ought to have known better. Yes, they're both somewhat emergency war builds, but I don't think that wholly excuses it. Hawkins have so many issues. Yes, I do agree. But the Hawkins are a product of a divided admiralty, so that's not really surprising. The D's and the Emeralds, the D's, I would say, are fairly good. The Emeralds, I think the problem is there's only 2 built, so you don't really see them getting into their stride, and also they are starting with the twin turret arrangement and a twin gun turret arrangement, and I have a feeling that if you'd seen these go on, there would have been a super firing and they'd evolved into quite naturally into a Leander class sort of like thing, because there were designs around which looked like a proto Leander with 8 6-inch guns in 4 twin turrets. G-Dum, since we're all tired from something or other, alive on the 15th or 16th sound like a good idea to me. I hope you enjoyed it. Rob Smith, fun and Gatwick Airport are mutually exclusive unless one counts trying to run the wrong way along the moving walkways. That's not as fun as it might sound. John Sykes, hello, John. I know I've got messages from you I need to respond to. I will respond to them at some point. As odd and unconventional as it looks, the USS Concord fired the last naval shot of World War II, surviving the war to be broken up about a year or so later, which is annoying because honestly, these ships deserve to be preserved. If just as a reminder to the US government and the US Navy, we can procure some idiots. I'm reckoning this ship has got hit by torpedoes. Yes, it has. Its second torpedo hits. That's not good. And honestly, I'm not surprised. So, if they were even numbers, I'm fairly certain the Italians would be gone by now. But twice the numbers of them, and they're doing quite well. Admittedly, I'm not helping either side. Spotsky, I didn't know it fired last naval shot of World War II. Interesting. It's quite cool to know that the Concorde did that. It is possible to have fun at Gatwick. Mainly, I have the fun at Gatwick of wandering around and watching my dear colleague, Drac NFL, scare the bejesus out of people by walking through looking like something out of Men in Black. We'll leave that to one side. Andrew Cox, perhaps having learnt the lessons of Jutland from RN, the USN concluded that it was best if the scouting force was kept as close as possible to the battle force. There is certainly an argument for that, but your battle force, your scouting force was actually slower than your scouting force, your battle force at one point. Phil Van Lane, is that a Civil War Riverine gunboat in silhouette and title card? Yep, I have one of those now. Thanks for that. Oh, been looking forward to this one. That's good. Aaron Contreras, I didn't think the New Orleans class screamed confusion. I can understand everything for them. Augie, the Omaha class. My favorite of the old school cruisers. Ugly and fast. Spotsky, I love the ugly looking look of the Omahas. It's like a four-pipe destroyer, but bigger. That is really what it describes. It is like they've supersized a four-pipe destroyer. A really good listen from Love Boxing, thank you. Wayne's World of Science. Positive vote for live, thank you. But very nice insights for the reasons these designs are just made. Not hearing any hate here. Hugh Fisher, and once more we have Dr. Clarke wondering why the US Navy didn't go for 10,400 tons and 12 8-inch guns. Still, we do have a lot of cruisers remaining, so there may still chance one to be actually described as too big. Maybe to hippers, if you're wondering why I bring this up, Dr. Clarke used to regularly criticize Top Trump's approach to ranking warships. This year's videos have largely been celebration of bigger and more guns equals better. Now, Hugh, I understand this, but as I answered in this one, and I still do, the point I'm making though is these ships are not heavy cruisers. They're a whole set of things, but not a heavy cruiser. Apart from in treaty definition, and even by that, suffer. A heavy cruiser is by definition, if we consider first-class armor cruiser as its forebears, supposed to make everything beneath it quake and everything above it consider its moves carefully. These don't. And that's the point I'm making with the entire treaty series of the 1920s and 1930s. These ships aren't heavy cruisers. So we cannot evaluate them as such. Because if I start evaluating them as heavy cruisers, they suffer. They really do. And they really do. 0206, Night 6831. Considering that St. Louis and Brooklyn sank themselves in defiance of the scrappers, Helena is the victim of Japanese torpedoes and Phoenix falls victim to Conqueror, whereas the rest go to breakers. Yeah, I'm not sure if you plan to steer clear of General Belgrano in your Brooklyn cruiser video later in the year. No, I never steer clear of contentious things. I just plow straight into them and just watch myself suffer. Dennis advised, do you view as a favour in future videos and double volume? We can always turn the volume down on our end, but your present volume is way too low. Hi Dennis, normally volume is not an issue. It was found that an update to MS Teams in the 2 weeks preceding the Canada trip had affected the sound. Sadly, I did not have time to record everything before I went after the issue was found. Yours sincerely, Alex. I'm sorry about that. I do apologise for the sound issues. And okay. So basically, this is what happens after a little while. Your light cruisers, if they get caught, your very light cruisers, if they do get caught, get into trouble. And Sutledge has decided that, frankly, Chester was annoying her, and is going to take on the remaining Austrian Gisianos herself. So, good luck to the They're out of torpedoes. They are out of torpedoes. Oh, this is not good for any of you. Torpedoes were about the only thing you had that were keeping them at bay. You're out of torpedoes. This is not good. She has actually got some armor. It's only 4.5 inches, but it's actually some armor. And does look like a miniature warspite from World War II. But we'll leave that to one side. Now getting the idea of what warspite with 12, 15-inch guns would look like. Coursing through my mind. Dennis Bullis, you might consider the Great Depression and reduce naval budgets at limited options as to what could be built. Navy could have gotten funding for a specialized scout force leaders. It would have built them. As I point out, the Great Depression only starts in 1929, plus building ships would be a good way for getting money back into the economy. Furthermore, well, if I cover too much in the introduction, then I either become repetitive or I have little to say in future videos series. So I'm going to be getting into the effects of that as the series go on, because it affects individual classes differently. That's a great free one. We know the British had planned for 4 NEN frees and 4 G frees, but the thing is that in 1921, The British planned to build 4 ships, I believe, then 4 more next year. There's 1922 upgrade of naval infrastructure coming as well. The reality is we don't know how long the British post-World War I shipbuilding was going to last, as really N3 and G3 are just scratching the surface of what the Royal Navy was planning in the 1920s. Let's put it this way. My theory and long-term suspicion has been they would have started off by building those 4 ships and 4 ships, and then seen what everyone else was doing. And if everyone else was building very few ships, then they just settled themselves down to probably a class of 4 over any 4-year period, with 2 being built at a time. So 2 ships take roughly 2 years, and then building 2 more. If people start building more, then they'd have built more. But honestly, this is their plan for what is to deal with the scenario of the world. They don't expect to get back into another building race. Fitz Walker, you do realise that all cruisers in the US Navy during the post-World War I through to after World War II were named after cities and towns, right? So all cruisers in the US are town class until around the late 50s and 60s. Yes, I realise. But I can have fun with that. Deek25, I kind of like the look of the Omahas, mostly for their weird quirkiness. Every name on the throne seems to have their own shit they beat with a stick. With Drac, it's Bismarck. For Dr. Clarke, it seems like it's actually the Yorks. Yes. Actually, no, I don't want to beat the Yorks with a stick. I want to beat the designers of the Yorks with a stick. I want to beat the politicians who thought it was a good idea with a stick. In fact, I want to beat everyone involved in the process that generates the Yorks with a stick. Preferably that stick would be a very large lump of 2x4, or alternatively a baseball bat. Either will do quite happily for me. Cricket bat, less preferable, but still doable. The Omaha and Pensacolas strike me as essentially experimental designs that were put into service because 1, they needed hulls, and 2, because they didn't know what they actually needed. The same can be said of the Atlanta class. The fact the USN got a lot of serious good use from these types, but also could see the weaknesses and areas for improvement, speaks to how capable and able to learn the USN actually were, i.e. the jump from us to the Brooklyns. The Clevelands are only possible through serious self-reflection on designs, and I've often thought, from a technology point of view, dismantling was something the Axis sorely lacked. The Allies could learn and improve. The Axis had a lot of ego that blind leaderships. My response to that was, if by beat with a stick you mean would happily beat those who forced their creation with many sticks, I will accept this assessment. And I do agree about the ability to learn, but also I would say the Allies had the infrastructure that enabled them to learn. They could actually be doing more construction, actually building stuff, whereas the Axis didn't have the infrastructure. They couldn't build in the first place. In the nicest way, World War II, as I've often said, was decided a long time prior to it actually happening. It was decided with the destruction of German infrastructure that was caused by the Treaty of Versailles. It was decided by the fact that the Italians didn't invest in infrastructure, neither did the Germans in the interwar period as much as they needed to, instead preferring to invest in big, shiny things which looked cool but couldn't support themselves because they didn't have the infrastructure to support them. And they were decided by the fact of the geography of Japan and the fact, again, they didn't invest in infrastructure. So basically, World War II is decided by people not investing in infrastructure, and by the fact that the Americans did invest in infrastructure, especially with the rapid build-up to war that happened for them between 1937 and 1941. And the British had enough legacy infrastructure and, to an extent, had managed to keep just enough going that they could actually outbuild their opponents. And the Russians were able to sacrifice territory for infrastructure. Nice agree, everyone. Gone off topic, but yeah, 4 N3 in World War II would have been interesting. As an N3 at 23 knots, they're too slow for carrier escort, but very good for convoy escort. And a surface trader would want to avoid an N3 at all cost. An N3 going at 23 knots is basically your constant oncoming enemy. You put them into the Mediterranean at the beginning. They are such armored hunks of steel. They probably just keep going, and you possibly take one right inside Taranto and just blast at things. Thank you, Sean LeBou, for subscribing. Alex, your microphone on this video is glitchy on this video. Sounds like a digital rather than analog microphone, judging from the computery nature of the glitches. Very digital sounding, like on a very glitchy cell phone. I use a Razer Siren Elite microphone, which normally does a fairly decent job. Sometimes I have to admit I do take off the foam muffler because I'm a bit worried sometimes about that. It seems to clog itself up with dust and become very unusable. And it does have a pop protector, which occasionally sits down. But it's there, it works, and I rather like it as a rule, as long as MS Teams isn't mucking it about. I think this ship is going to be going next, and Sutlej is just going, I'm going to take you all out. Sutlej? Yeah, they're all basically, she's going 1-to-1. I'm going to take you all. She's running out of. I think she's got a load of high explosive left, but no more in terms of armor piercing for her 6-inch guns. Where is the other one of my number? There is another. Chester is just being. What the. Chester, was there actually any point in you being here? Double clicking on you is supposed to take me to you. Oh, there you go. Hello, Chester. I'm not sure what we're doing. We're partially flooded. Are any of our guns working? We're still afloat. That's the important thing. We're recovering ourselves. We're rebuilding ourselves and preparing ourselves to go back into the fight, are we? You're valiantly trying to catch up with your counterpart. And the fact is, you have got up to... Oh, are you actually going to full speed again? You're up to... You've managed to get up to speed? That's quite disturbing. And you're keeping these two busy. That's good. You keep... Oh, you're fighting back. That's good. If you get a kill, I'll be so happy for you, Chester, because you've really earned it. Although, if you manage to get a kill while sailing at that angle, I will also be entirely telling you it's a fluke. It's a complete and utter fluke. You're out of torpedoes, Blitz. Sorry. Now, let's see. Where is your hiding opponent coming up to try and kill you? I think it's somewhere this way. Yeah, pretty. Where are you? I have a second cruiser somewhere around here. I think she's gone off that way. Why has she gone off that way? What's she doing? Oh, no, there's Sutlej. Oh, she's basically charging straight at them in true your fashion. Oh, joyous choice. Yeah, MS Teams and XSplit often have arguments, and I suffer. Degasama, what if the US had supplied Baltimore to the UK? How hard would it have been for Britain to maintain and operate them? The question is more, why would we? The RN had counties, were building cruisers throughout the war. Whilst things were never easy with the bombing and other issues, they still built didos, crown colonies, and other ships. How the US had for some reason supplied Baltimore's, then as long as they supplied the spare parts and machinery necessary to build those parts, or the machinery necessary to build those parts, it would have been possible for the UK to maintain and operate without much difficulty. Degasama, I had this fantasy of Cunningham being given both Alaska and Guam while he's in command in the Mediterranean, and the Italians losing even more heavy cruisers because of it. Sorry I took up your time with it. Love you, sir. Love what you do, sir. Well, thank you, Degasama. And honestly, actually, that's a completely different matter. If Cunningham had been given Alaska and Guam, if they'd come on service in time for him to actually use them in the Mediterranean, he would have been frankly ecstatic with those ships. You know, it's actually the Mediterranean is one of the scenarios where they really do make sense, and they are really useful. Again, it's the thing about the Alaskas is they come so late in the war. That's their problem. If they'd been available in 1939 for the UK, they would be singing their praises. If they'd been available in 1941 for the US Navy, we would be singing their praises because they would have been so frigging useful, especially in escorting carriers, but in doing all the cruiser actions you see that take place. They would have been really, really useful. The thing is, they come too late. if they'd come earlier, they would have been absolutely amazing, and people would be basically singing their praises non-stop. But they come too late, and as a result, by the time they come in, people go, well, what's their purpose? Everything they were built to fight, everything they could have won glory against, everything they would have earned their position and would have been vaunted for doing has already happened and been done by other things because it's had to be because they weren't there. But good question. Aaron Taylor, I don't think anything you're saying is attack on the SN. Rather, it honestly makes sense, considering that the Navy went for years prior to the Omahas without any allowance for cruiser construction, and were having to figure out it on the fly. Even today, you can go into a bookstore and buy How to Cruiser. No, but it would be tempting to write it. And Patrick Clayton, very good, thank you. And then Jeff By, where's your record louder? You record a louder volume. Better when you set up and move forward. It's found to, as I said, it was found to be a problem with MS Teams. But let's see what's going on. I think Blitz is going to go next. Basically, I seem to have been. I really think that ship, instead of being named Sutledge, should have been called HMAS Sydney, because basically she's decided that these little cruisers are her bait, her dinner, and she's going to eat them all up. Yeah, you are not going to be living through this. High explosive rounds take longer to kill you, but, you know, they are going to kill you because you do not have anything else. Sutledge, Jester, they're both coming along. Oh, she's doing 16.7 knots. That makes more sense. Maximum speed, 32.5 knots. Now, this is the point at which, in all honesty, this ship should be making for... well, should be using its speed to get away. It's out of ammunition. It's out of torpedoes. In real life, it'll be gone. So this is where the simulation and I have to say, have an argument. Because in real life, there is no way this ship is still slanging around here. It's bugging out at full speed. But no. Now it's charging in. And at this point, you've got this one firing with 4-inch guns. That's just cruel, closing into 4-inch gun range. This one firing a range with, well, 6-inch guns. And apparently 4-inch guns. So, yeah, we might as well just follow this ship as it attempts to go down in what can only be described as a blaze of triumphant glory. And I have great respect for it doing so, but yes, it's not going to survive. So unsurprisingly, considering it's out of ammunition, it's out of firepower, and its entire advantage of numbers and speed has been slowly whittled away by the fact the other things had some armor. Because they're cruisers. And as such, survivability has to be baked in to an extent. It doesn't require much to be survivable. Well, talking about these ships, the British ships have 4.5 inches of belt armor. 4.5 inches. It's not exactly a massive amount. So, sorry about the graphics again. I'm trying. That's the next project personal project I'm saving up for, is to either rebuild or purchase a newer tower. I don't want to purchase, but every time I look at graphics cards, etc., and things like combinations I want, they seem to be a wait time of months, whereas I can buy a tower, and especially from someone like Dell, and get it delivered fairly quickly. And we do have a tradition of Aces and Dells in my family, as a rule. Usually laptops, because I'm sorry. I know there are people who build their own laptops, but that's a level of skill well beyond me. I can build my own tower. I'm very proud and very happy to build my own tower, and I'd like to build my own tower. But all the I can't compete with the crypto miners. I really can't. They're buying too much. But no. So that's my next thing. Get a decent tower. Get it built. Or build it. We've got the screens. Got everything else for it. Poor laptop does its best. But it really can't do those sorts of graphics. Thank you very much for your support. I hope you enjoy the videos. I hope you find them useful, and I hope you find naval history fun. That's why I do all this stuff. Because I find naval history a lot of fun. And I want other people to enjoy it. Which is why I'm out here recording this at 11 o'clock at night. Because after a stressful day, it's a good way to wind down. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care, and good luck.